Hey everybody, Tom Vasel here, and welcome to a series where I'm going to go through and rank all the villains in X-Men United. Now, a couple of things here. First of all, I'm not ranking them in power order. I actually think I could do that pretty easily. Some are more powerful than others. I'm ranking them in the order I want to play them. And honestly, I would play almost every villain. There's a couple villains I won't play at all, and they're on today's list, the bottom. We're at the very bottom. But even the ones that are, that I might rank 25 out of 35, I might still play them because, you've got to try to overcome different challenges. But I'm ranking these again based on how fun I thought the experience was all the way up to number 1. I'm doing the heroes in a separate list, and these are the villains. You might have very different opinions on this. I played every villain against the different heroes. I've tried them all out. And I also am not mixing this with the original Marvel United because that's just a lot of work to mix them all together. And we already have 35 different villains we're going to be going through. So let's get started with the worst of the worst, in my opinion anyway, number 35. Okay, we have to start at the bottom, and this is the one villain that I pretty much will refuse to play against again, and that is Deadpool. Now, Deadpool has a different figure than the hero version of Deadpool because, hey, more Deadpool. You can't beat Deadpool, so it even tells you that. So in the setup, you're not using mission cards in this game, but you're trying to keep track. You're basically just trying to get as high of a score as you possibly can. And then your score at the end of the game, which it tells you in the rule book, he'll be like, yay, good job, or whatever. And I automatically dislike that. You can't beat him. Also, when he does his BAM, does 2 damage each hero, you have to shout ouch or you take an extra damage. And so the overflow is a big deal, but he's just going to be constantly killing you. You can't defeat him. You can't beat him. You just got to survive through all of his cards. So I guess on the good side of things, his threat cards are simply nothing. They're just a bunch of stupid sayings, and they're just a bunch of various things, although this one's very difficult. And it gives you 10 points if you clear it, because again, you're looking for that. These cards, his master plan cards, moves a location with the hero controlled by the last player to win a competitive game in your group. Move to a location with card most kind of hands. The last player to roll a die. The last player to eat something. The last person to drink from their glass. Moves to the next counterclockwise location. That's interesting, and he adds stuff. So he kind of acts normal, but the reason I don't like him is because there's no victory condition. It's just getting points, and that just doesn't appeal to me at all. Also, this whole fourth wall, having to shout ouch, that just doesn't interest me at all in this particular game. So this was a kind of an easy pick for me to put at the bottom because I just don't really have any fun. I don't mind silliness, and even, Marvel United is essentially a little silly in general. You have cheapy figures, but this is a little too silly for me. Okay, now we have Dark Phoenix. Now, again, I want you to remember that the difficulty of the people I'm fighting does not necessarily affect where they are on the list, but the fun I have is what affects it. But I will say Dark Phoenix is very difficult. So her starting thing here is that she replaces all the civilians with thugs in all the locations, which is good because all of her threat cards require heroic stuff, which is kind of typical. They're not very unique there. Heroes taking damage in 3 of the locations taking extra damage. And she, by the way, let's take a look at this cool miniature. I really like this one. It's neat. I think if you're going to paint it, you'll probably have to break the Phoenix off the back and glue it back on again. I'm not sure how that's going to be done, or tape it up. It seems like it's going to be a tricky one to paint, but it's a pretty neat model. Anyhow, you can't attack her with attacks. You have to use heroics. So that makes it so that you need heroics to defeat these. You need heroic to defeat her. So the attacking is just against the thugs. And I find that to be, it means you have to specifically pick a team. But that's not what made her go down low on my list. What made her go down is when a hero is KO'd, she doesn't activate the BAM, which is, by the way, just doing a damage to each hero in her location and the ones adjacent to her, and lots of her cards will do more. But you remove the first face-up location from the game, and discard everyone there. And face down locations have no end of turn effect and blah, blah, blah. And what it does is it makes the game smaller. That plus her discard a top card of each hero's deck from the game. And there are 4 of those cards. Then there are several accelerate the next villain turn by 1. And then here add 2 humans to a location, resolve it 1 more turn. Flip the 3 latest face-up hero cards, the storyline face down, which is really devastating if it's the second card that shows up and you've placed your starting hand cards. Don't get me wrong, she's a challenge, and I think some people really like playing against her because I don't mind the challenge part of it. I just found that the game got progressively less fun for me as I played through it, and that's why Dark Phoenix is this low on the list. So now we got Juggernaut. Now, he's from the original set, and I think he might be the first one I ever played, and I was like, I like X-Men United. I didn't really like Juggernaut. All he does is he runs around. He's one of the few people, I think he might be one of the only ones who runs in different directions, and that's because he does a damage to each hero and the locations he left, entered, or ran through this turn. So I believe he's very similar to the Rhino from the original Marvel United. I don't know, I just don't find that interesting. In different locations, you take extra damage. He ignores the damage. He's very simple to play. I'll give him that. I mean, all he's going to do is he's going to run around. But I mean, I don't like these avatars that do ignore damage and then you can throw those back in. Unstoppable charge, he'll just deal damage to people where he's at. He doesn't add a lot of people to the board, so you're basically just trying to quickly finish missions and then beat him up before he just destroys everybody on the table. But man, oh man, you know, because every time he does KO a character, he adds another card to the storyline, and he's just going to keep running through you. And it's very possible that card 1, he hits every character in the game. It's very possible. And then on round 2, he hits everyone again. And I just felt like, okay, good. I get it, you're the unstoppable Juggernaut. But I want it a little bit more. I want there to be a bit of nuance. There's no nuance with the Juggernaut, and I didn't find it particularly fun just have this guy just keep running you over all the time. I'd play him, I guess, you know, and he's not a terrible one to have in the opening set, but just for me, he's not as fun as, well, 32 other villains. Avalanche is another one of those heroes which I'm not sure deserves to be a master villain. He's more like a henchman, but whatever. Avalanche is just, he's the overflow villain. So he's going to drop crisis tokens that will take up spots in a location. That's what he does. He does 1 damage to every hero in his location and both locations adjacent to it. So he's hitting half the board whenever he does a BAM, which is on almost all his cards. Then you put a crisis token in one of the spots on the board, and he's dropping in people. Now, he's not dropping in a ton of people, but anytime there's an overflow token that we can't add, we draw a master plan card and add it face down in the thing. He also has Seismic Wave, 2 of these cards, which you fill the rightmost empty slot in his and adjacent tokens with a crisis token, which, by the way, this is a terrible card to draw as the first card because he moves there and drops 1 in, but whatever. Then if there's no empty slots, you discard the rightmost one and replace with a crisis token. He'll do that all the time. He discards stuff and replaces it, which can make it, if you don't beat him fast enough, he can make it so you can't even finish your missions or you're having a very difficult time because you're running around looking for thugs and citizens to defeat. But you got to get rid of these aftershocks or that everyone's going to be taking too much damage as you land at these spots. If you end your turn, you take a damage. Overflows are triggered anywhere and you land at, you take a damage. So heroes take a lot of damage from him. And again, this is just one for me I didn't find as much fun. I like the idea of dealing with overflows, but for him it was just compounded overflow upon overflow upon overflow, and the game can end really fast, and sometimes you feel like you're just bewildered. You're like, well, there was nothing we could really do. All that stuff just compounded on top of each other. Avalanche won. And then you feel kind of garbage because you just lost to Avalanche of all things. So, there's that. So, yeah, not one of my favorites. So then we have the very well-dressed Sebastian Shaw. Sebastian Shaw, the one thing I like is that he has all these really cool henchmen, and I'm a big fan of actually villains that have a couple henchmen or so. All 6 of his are henchmen, and they're all pretty nasty, but even more deadly is the Hellfire Club power, which returns all of them still in play to their starting health value, and if they're at full health, they get their BAM again. So, they're beating up on you. He's constantly beating up on you. when he bams, he's just going to be drawing another master plan, but he can't take more than 1 damage. Now, he only has a little bit of life. That's the saving grace of him. But when you damage him, you take 2 damage. And then these guys, the Black Rook, who's a villain in his own right, is going to do 1 damage. The White King does a damage. The rest of the people are throwing crisis tokens on them. And if you have crisis tokens on you, you play your card randomly. He also has a couple cards that give heroes crisis tokens. I'm not saying the guy's impossible to defeat, because he's not. I think I've beaten him. I don't remember. It's just that I just didn't find him particularly fun to play against. When you play several cards randomly, because he's giving that, playing cards randomly is not, that happens sometimes, and I can live with that. I just find him, again, I don't know how, it's hard to quantify sometimes, just that some characters are not as fun for me as others, and Sebastian Shaw was one of those. It's incredibly frustrating also to be fighting these people and suddenly have them heal up, and if they're already healed, they do all kinds of things and give crisis tokens out, and sometimes that stuff happens at the very beginning of the game and it feels like you're behind. Now, that can happen with any of the villains. They can all have a very bad first turn, and usually I just, say, oh, okay, we'll start the whole fight over. But in this case, he's just not one of my favorites. Namor. Now, we have to say, Namor is such a great model. And so he's also a hero. As a villain, he's dropping crisis tokens around the board, and that's how he wins the game. So if he drops 3 crisis tokens, if a location has 3 crisis tokens, he'll add 1 in the next location. And if there are 4 locations with 3 crisis tokens, then he straight up wins. And then he's always moving away from you too, which I find interesting, or he'll push you away from him. So move each hero 1 location. That's 3 of them, the tidal waves. And then the Atlantis invades, he's just dropping thugs all over the place when these cards go off. And they're going to go off a lot. So his BAM does 2 damage to a hero, and you put a crisis token in that. His most dangerous thing, though, are these Imperious Rex cards. So there are 6 of these in this set, and I believe there's 1 for each number. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 6 of them. Each one does 1 damage for each one that's already face up. Now, if you have a hero who can flip stuff face down, great. Otherwise, he's going to drop different things in location that have crisis tokens, and he does 1 damage amongst the heroes. So, like by the last one that comes out, he's doing 5 damage to the heroes. He can do a lot of damage. So why is he so low on the list for me? I'm again, there's another one I'm having a hard time quantifying. I just didn't particularly, I know I've beaten Namor, but the dropping the crisis tokens, I felt sometimes that he came real fast and there wasn't anything we could do about it. I just wasn't super excited about the character in general. I don't think he just wasn't that interesting. And the tidal waves moving you away from Namor, I don't know. He's fine. I like to play many other villains more than him. Maybe Bob is too low. Part of it is, I really find it irritating that Bob is a super villain at all. Bob just wants to have a retirement plan. So he has a track that he's moving up. And if it reaches 12, players lose. And so Overflow moves it up. And if there's no heroes in his location, whenever BAM goes, it goes up. Otherwise, it goes down 1 for each hero in his location. Now, he has a bunch of villains. Henchman here, Kingpin, Green Goblin, Tiger Shark, Taskmaster, MODOK, and Red Skull. And these all do various things. You can't do Red Skull until the Defeat Thugs mission's been completed. You can't do Taskmaster until the Clear Threats mission has been completed, which is a little weird because, that means you have to do 4 other ones before him. And Green Goblin you can't do till the Rescue Civilians mission has been completed. Bob has a bunch of retirement plan cards. They're all very similar. They're all called retirement plan. Do a damage to heroes and then add stuff. Increase your retirement plan for 1 for each hero in his location, which kind of basically just cancels the BAM. Then add 1. Increase it for 1 for each locations adjacent to him. So he's constantly moving up that retirement plan, constantly putting people out on the board, constantly fighting back and forth. The biggest thing is he's not under pressure. So to damage Bob, you have to do all 3 missions. So here's the thing. Here's why Bob's low on my list. Because he's annoying. It's annoying to fight Bob. I don't find it as fun to fight Bob. It's like, oh, wow, first of all, it makes no thematic sense why all these guys are working. I guess he's working around them. He's working for them. Who knows what. But, Taskmaster's canceling stuff. He's moving the track up. Every time you think you're getting the track down, boom, MODOK's flipping cards face down. Bob's just moving around and you really have no track where he's going to go. And then just the retirement plan goes up. And it's hard to have a cohesive plan to fight Bob. Now, Bob does come in the Deadpool set. So this kind of fits that feature. And that's the two supervillains from the Deadpool set. You can see both are here in my bottom 8 villains. But, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't find him particularly fun. It was more annoying to play against him. So maybe that's what they were going for. I mean, his name is Bob. Sorry, all Bobs out there. I don't think Bobs are annoying. Several of my best friends are called Bob. Okay, I'm going off topic here. Bob Agent Hydra, yeah, a pass on him for me. Okay, the last one we have for today is Sabretooth. Sabretooth is a cool character, the opposite of Wolverine. Another one here from the core set. Sabretooth is Hunter. Now, there's 2 characters that do hunting, Sabretooth and Lady Deathstrike. I think for me, so this is going to be a hard one to quantify, but I think for me, the reason Sabretooth is lower is because I just don't like the hunting thing that much. At the beginning of the game, you're going to give a hunted token to the starting hero. They're the hunted hero. And he's hunting you down. So when a hunted token person's KO'd, you're going to, before you activate the BAM, you give the hunted token to the next player. When everyone's KO'd, you lose. In the 3-player game, which is the number one way I play it, so when 3 people are KO'd, in a 2-player game, they each have to be KO'd twice. So the hunted person in 3 of the locations is taking a damage if they end there. So you want to clear these out. Here, if he lands here, he kills all the civilians and damages heroes next to him, but he's also hunting down the hunted hero. He has a lot of cards where he's just going to move straight to where you are. So you don't really have a chance to run from him. Sabretooth is essentially a fast race. To finish the missions as fast as you can and then hit Sabretooth. He does have regenerative factor. As long as it's face up, he recovers a health at the end of his turn. So if he can get both of those up pretty quickly, you are going to have to just nail him as fast as you can. And his health isn't low. In a 3-player game, it's 7. In a 4-player game, it's 10. So again, it's kind of a speed game. When I play Sabretooth, just like Juggernaut, the games are really fast. He's either going to murder me as quickly as he can, or we have to rush as fast as we can to take him out before the hunted people go. And again, he's just lower on my list because that hunted thing is not as enjoyable for me as the heroes. I get it, and it's interesting, right? And it works, and I know a lot of people, maybe Sabretooth's one of their favorites. I just found it less interesting. Well, there you go. That is my bottom 8 characters. So, again, I would play almost all of these. I think I won't play Deadpool again, won't play Juggernaut, or Dark Phoenix. I don't really like playing her. So these would not be my choices. But I got to tell you, starting with the next ones, and even some of these, I'll still play them because I want to learn how to play the different ways in this game. Even Bob. But anyway, what do you think? Maybe some of these are your favorites. Let me know in the comments. But anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been the Villains of Marvel or X-Men United Ranked.